Ted Cruz continues to give Donald Trump fits over the course of the weekend. He just swept all of Colorado's delegates into his column, and Trump is not liking it. Cruz took all 13 of the delegates up for grabs on Saturday to complete a clean sweep of the state. Delegates endorsed by his campaign swept all 7 congressional district conventions held over the last week as well, which added another 21 delegates. Another 3 slots are reserved for state party officials, which are basically their equivalent of the superdelegates, which are a much smaller number.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, look, the way that it went down in Colorado was even more arcane and weird than usual because near the end of last year, they decided to not have a real primary or a real caucus and instead had these individual county level conferences or caucuses that went on, which allowed a candidate who had a very well-functioning, well-oiled campaign machine to go in and exert real control, ideological control, but also, from Donald Trump's point of view, to subvert the system with promises and gifts and things like that.
You mean from Ted Cruz's point of view, right?
No, Donald Trump thinks that Ted Cruz did that. I mean, Ted Cruz likes that he can theoretically do that, but Donald Trump certainly thinks that he did that.
I think you don't even need, I don't even think you needed to be, didn't read to me like you needed to be particularly high functioning.
That's true. You needed to be not dysfunctional.
You needed to not be Trump's campaign, right?
That's true. We have details.
A regular campaign would have been prepared for this.
So let me clarify something. The people of Colorado did not vote
at all.
For Ted
very,
Cruz.
very few.
Vote. Okay, that's
the
insane.
County officials did.
That is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that qualify as a democratic system? Because we vote for these representatives?
It's theoretically a republic, assuming that those people were at some point elected, which I'm not even sure that they were.
I mean...
But anyway, if you're frustrated about it, imagine how Donald Trump feels, because he desperately needs those delegates to avoid a contested convention. He said this in response to the results: "I've gotten millions of more votes than Senator Ted Cruz." Again, I don't think that really means anything. I mean something. It doesn't mean what he's saying it means.
Don't say it doesn't mean anything.
Yes, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything.
Well,
but again, there's caucuses, and I know, and then I immediately backtracked. Right. I didn't wait until the next day like Donald Trump would. And I've gotten hundreds of delegates more. That, in this context, means absolutely nothing. Whether he's won previous contests has nothing to do with whether the results of this one are democratic or not. He's right in this case, but not for the reasons he's listing. And we keep fighting. Yes, primaries are they're inconvenient. And then you have a Colorado where they just get all those delegates, and it's not even a system. Well, it is a system. It's a corrupt system. There was no voting. I didn't go out there to make a speech or anything. There's no voting. I mean, technically, he could have gone out there and made a speech if he wanted to. He chose, and probably wisely, to focus his attention on New York.
How bad does Anna feel that Donald Trump just literally said exactly what you said?
She said there's not even a system. You either have a system or you don't have a system.
Yeah,
look, I think it's disastrous for a state to choose a candidate based on what the delegates want. Is insane. Like, you should have a voting system where the people go out there, they cast their ballot, and they make it be known who they like. And understand, like, I despise Trump, right? So I'm not doing this because I'm standing up for Trump. I'm doing this because I believe in democracy and I believe in people having some political power. And this system makes it seem as though people have no political power whatsoever.
You know, for all the political junkies like me, and for that I have been really since I came of age, whenever that was, 84, and we bemoan the conventions, which are just 4-day, or last year, one of them was 3 days. They're infomercials for the candidates. I mean, they are incredibly, they're repulsive to me of what they've become. They're celebrating. I mean, if it's your candidate, I guess you like it. Like, I liked the Obama one, but I get it.
And I liked Obama's speech at the previous one.
But it was an infomercial for Obama. It was an infomercial for John Kerry, and it was an infomercial for George W. Bush and Mitt Romney and John McCain. And we complained about that. But the reason why it was that way is because at least the process getting there, the guys who the infomercial were for, was the choice of the majority of that party. Like, I guess I'd rather have the infomercial than this, even though the Republican convention promises to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's an infomercial for a Jerry Springer reboot.
That's right.
Yeah, look, if the system getting there is democratic and legitimate, I'm fine with them celebrating. It's a party. You should party every once in a while.
Right, but then the press needs to acknowledge
that's what it is.
That they don't need to cover it at the same way because it's an infomercial and they can find it online, or it'll be on C-SPAN, or they can show it for an hour a night or something. You know? But don't pretend like, oh no, we got to see where he's going to get nominated. He's going to get nominated.
Yeah. Well, and
Romney
again,
won.
I think it's better than if we just get to the convention and then they go in a smoke-filled room and then decide for us.
I don't know. My dad always liked what came out of those smoke-filled rooms. So I think my father, he liked. Well,
I trust
again,
your dad, but
we're in a different era. But I mean, again, because sometimes the idea is that you got to be careful of giving the people what they want. The people will do something hideous, right?
Yeah.
The people are doing something hideous with Donald Trump. They're also doing something hideous with Ted Cruz.
That's
true.
true.
You know, I mean, the people who need superdelegates right now, obviously, the wrong party has superdelegates.
Yeah, that's true. In this case, I bet they wish they had more of those.
If there were 750 superdelegates,
the entire thing would be over.
Or and those other guys, somebody wouldn't have dropped out. Also, somebody would be
Probably
still,
would be getting the
maybe
backing of
Rubio
them.
or Jeb Bush would still be in there, or Kasich would have a much greater. Kasich would then be an obvious choice for all those superdelegates.
Yeah, and would actually have a path. It's easy for Donald Trump to say the system is rigged here, and I think that he's largely right, especially in this particular case. But that's not necessarily why he lost here. I mean, first of all, Colorado, would it have gone overwhelmingly for Ted Cruz? I don't know. But would it have gone for Ted Cruz? I think it certainly could have gone for Ted Cruz. It seems like exactly the sort of state where his message and his ridiculous ideology would work. Colorado Springs would probably love Ted Cruz, I would imagine. And also, the rules are ridiculous here, but there were rules. And we're going to show you the ways that he failed to live up to the system that had been set up, which Ted Cruz figured it out. He doesn't seem like the smartest person in the room. It seems like they maybe could have done their homework. So basically what they need to do is they have their delegates that they support, which is different than in the normal system, and they have to get them elected, like candidates for the candidate. So Trump backers passed out flyers at the convention site with official campaign slate of 13 delegates and 13 alternates, accompanied by their 3-digit number position on the 600-plus person ballot. So you can already tell this is not something most people want to be involved with. 7 of the names, however, directed people to the wrong number.
So more than half.
More than half. And one delegate's name was misspelled. Other candidates did not have errors on their slates. In one case, an erroneous number corresponded with a Cruz supporter. A second flyer handed out by the Trump campaign contained 4 mismatched names and numbers. On Thursday, a Trump slate of 3 names in the 7th Congressional District Convention contained 2 that weren't listed on the ballot. The campaign state director, Patrick Davis, said they failed to pay the necessary fees to qualify. On the other hand, Cruz's all-volunteer Colorado campaign distributed accurate slates not only on flyers, but also on bright orange t-shirts. As bright orange as his hair. Now, here's why this matters. This is stupid that they need to go through this, and I would be pissed if I was Donald Trump too, and I would end up in this position because I'm terrible with paperwork. That's why I ended up getting booted out of on-campus residency as an undergraduate. But he's the guy who keeps saying Obama and the government, they don't have leadership. They don't know how to run anything. They're incompetent. You can't get through a 26-person delegate selection process. You can't put a name next to a number in a very short list. I could have it in one of the note-taking things on my phone. But he couldn't manage that. And so as arcane and weird and perverse as his system is, you can take from this, maybe he's not as ready as he says he is to run the nation.
I mean, there were countless examples of why that's the case prior to this happening.
It's true. I like the arcane types, though.
No, look, it's a totally valid point. He's a fraud, just like Paul Ryan. I pointed out that Paul Ryan was a fraud on Friday. But Donald Trump is a fraud. Donald Trump is a marketer. Donald Trump knows how to market his name, and he's been good at, for the most part, not always, but pretty good at marketing his name. No longer, apparently. And running a campaign
would be misspelled.
Right. You need professionals to run your campaign. This is a difficult process. This is serious business. You know, Bernie Sanders figured it out. He'd never run a national campaign. He got it done, right? Yeah. Ted Cruz figured it out. He got it done. These other guys get it done. He hires guys like Corey Lewandowski. Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at Corey Lewandowski. Again, I'm going to go back to the point. Corey Lewandowski has spent too much time at the gym. That's what's important to Corey Lewandowski. That's the kind of guy he is.
And he'd probably talk to you about it too.
He totally would tell you about it. You know, he's like, oh yeah, no. How much you bench, man? That's what you talk about with Corey Lewandowski. And that's the kind of people Donald Trump gets to work for him. Yes. Roger Stone. You know, Roger Stone is I know people who like Roger Stone, you know.
Scotty Nell Hughes.
Right, who like him personally, but Roger Stone is terrible for America. Yeah. Right? So that's who you get. He's pretty bad
for himself lately.
He's good at it. I mean, he's good at it. There's no question he's good at that job.
Yeah.
But that's who Donald Trump gets. That's the kind of people he's going to have. And so I'm going to object to one thing you said because I like to do that apparently. But I want to be careful. The reason I think I got mad in the first segment is that because you said it again here, and we've all said it, but the system is rigged. The system is rigged sends a a very particular message, and it's the same message that Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski sent, which is, oh, it's rigged, nothing, it doesn't count. You're not. So the system isn't rigged. The system is flawed, and the system is complicated, but you just made the point that there were rules. Ted Cruz knew the rules. It's not rigged.
Well, Ben, I mean, in
okay,
that segment, you said yourself that, you know, in terms of Wyoming, they had decided in the 80s to switch the system up so it keeps the outsiders out. Outsiders like Bernie Sanders out. I mean, that sends the message that it's rigged against specific candidates.
That's different. That's a different point. You want to say that the superdelegates was an attempt to inoculate, to protect the, who cares what the attempt was?
Right.
The attempt was actually not sinister. They weren't looking at somebody specifically and thinking, oh no. I mean, it might have been Jesse Jackson that they were worried about in, I don't know, in '84. But let's be careful that we don't elect an unelectable candidate who just a populist who catches on with the people who then can't win in November. So that has now translated to 32 years later to where that has the potential to thwart a Bernie Sanders election. Then you could make an argument that it is rigged, but that system was rigged.
Right.
But so far, it's all irrelevant unless he takes the regular delegate lead.
Yeah.
It's only relevant.
I don't think it's. By the way, again going back to Wyoming, I don't think it's up to the establishment to decide who is and isn't electable in the general election. Like, even if they didn't do that for sinister reasons, I mean, at the end of the day, they're going against the will of the people in some instances, like this election, and going ahead and deciding who they're going to support, regardless of what people vote for. And that's a terrible, terrible system.
It is now that we have, yes, it has ended up, I am sympathetic to that desire to make sure, because again, the party knows well, when candidates run, knows well in some senses. But, you know, and keep in mind, they provide candidates. They're not just, this isn't a party like a dinner party, obviously. These parties provide enormous structure, framework, infrastructure that the candidates who are running under that, and money that they all use. So they get some say in the process. It's not outrageous to say, hey, you want to be the Democratic nominee, here are some rules. I think in that desire to protect itself, the Republicans could use it now, and I don't know that we'd be saying how terrible it was, at least on our side. But I think in the end, it's too easy to subvert. It's too easy to use for nefarious purposes. It's too easy to thwart an actual legitimate, well-meaning, well-intentioned candidate like Bernie Sanders, given the preponderance of the evidence, has to go.